Hey, hey.
Oh,
We
recording is in progress.
are,
That
we are
make
live and rolling, guys.
that make you nervous when you hear those words?
Always.
Recording in progress. It's the little red flashing light. Don't look at it. It's up in the top left. It is blinking. Don't look at it. Figure out how to
Oh,
later
man. Happy
cover that
Wednesday,
up.
guys. How's everybody feeling out there? Max, good to see you, buddy. I know we are, Brandon, I think we're going to get Jacob and team to really get into some good recruiting stuff with us today. We've been seeing these leaderboards and saying, man, we got to get him and the team on to figure out what they're doing, which, always, anytime we dig into those questions, it's never much of a surprise, but we were talking to him earlier today, and I think there's some really good stuff that if you're not doing, you need to be doing, that Jacob's going to be talking about. So, Brandon, I just kind of wanted to hop on for 5 minutes before we turn it over to Jacob and just kind of set up something him and I are going to share a little bit more on the next call. We just, first of all, just wanted to acknowledge, especially to all of you guys, all of you builders and leaders out there, because that's what this call is about. We just kind of want to acknowledge something first, which is that, since we rolled Quility out, that would have been the end of 2019. Is that right, Brandon? We recognize that over the last couple of years, as the company has grown, as Quility has been kind of into the mix, that things are different, and things are, in some ways, things may seem to not be as free, or that there may be things that are just kind of, there's more guidelines now, and there's more kind of rules to follow, and there's more kind of things like that are in the mix. And trust us, like Brandon and I are just cut from the same cloth as all of you. We don't necessarily like that. We want that perceived freedom to move, right? And so we often comment on that, Brandon. Like we talk about how things used to be just a little simpler, when it was smaller and when there wasn't as much at stake. And so we just, first of all, wanted to acknowledge that we get that. And if you feel that way, it's not, it's the feeling is backed up by truth. It is that way. There are more guardrails now. There are more things in place now. And that kind of is what we wanted to talk about for a second with you guys, because as some of you are aware, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is very much after protecting the public from companies, especially in the 1099 space, from being, what's the phrase I'm looking for, from being...
really basically from being what they would consider to be taken advantage of, or
deceptive,
misled.
Yeah, stuff like that. And so, there was a letter that went out to, I don't know how many, couple thousand, 3,000, think companies. Matt Goforth's going to be on the next call to talk about it a little bit. We were on the list of companies that the FTC kind of categorized as, well, this is kind of a 1099 type operation that you guys need to kind of understand the guidelines. And there were there was a company, or maybe more on that list, that actually was hit with some more serious follow-ups, cease and desist type stuff. And these are, people that are in our space, kind of quote unquote, what we used to consider a direct competitor, And so we just wanted to kind of acknowledge that is in the air. We want to talk about it a little bit more on the next call and how we're handling that. But I think the first thing, is that hopefully a lot of these guidelines that have been kind of put into place over the last couple of years now maybe starts to make a touch more sense, because that is one of the things about putting some of this into place is, with the increase in opportunity and impact we all get to make together, it also comes with responsibility. And that's why we've always tried to take a proactive approach, especially when it comes to like marketing or branding or events or anything like that, with like, we have to protect our opportunity to create massive amounts of impact. And so, Brandon, kind of chime in here if you want to on this, but We just wanted to make sure everyone understood, like, we have been super proactive with this already, which is such a great thing. We're going to take some more steps to make sure that we're being even more proactive, because look, we don't want the gun pointing back at us like it's pointed at others right now, you know?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think there's ways to kind of look at it, right? Like maybe it feels restrictive because it is, right? Not necessarily just what we're saying with everything going on with the FTC, but the larger you get as an organization, you know, everybody kind of wants to focus on rights. Not enough people like to focus on responsibilities. The bigger of an organization we get, the more impact that we can make. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. You know, 12 years ago, when Casey and I would be in front of a room talking to, 5 or 6 people and a dog, anybody that would listen, you never heard it come out of our mouth that this was easy, simple. Yeah. Because you can follow rules. You never heard us talk and overemphasize direct people's income. You always heard us say things like results may vary. You always heard us kind of try to take it away from people, because to us, it's always been the same. We're not looking for people that are looking for easy. We're looking for people that are looking for worth it. We're looking for the right people that are attracted to the message of, yeah, this is not some kind of get rich quick thing. This is not easy. Results are going to vary. You know, a lot of people will ask you, Casey, what does the average agent do? Well, a lot of times the average agent quits.
Yep.
You know, we're not looking for necessarily average people. And we also understand that people come here and they may be here for 90 days or 6 months and realize this isn't a fit for them. And we're okay with that. Matter of fact, it's like, we want people to give their all and to get what a lot of others have gotten out of this, but we know that that's just not going to be the case ever, regardless of what you do when it comes to a 1099 environment, or something where, people have to work and are directly compensated based on the impact they make. Okay. It's a good thing for us, right? So we don't have to get online and, somebody put a word in the chat earlier that was the perfect word, is predatory. That's not what we want to do. We're not trying to lure people in to quit their jobs and to leave their other organizations because there's this promise and this guarantee that they're going to be able to make a lot more money here, right? That's not who we are. We think there's a great opportunity. Obviously, we have a lot of results and people that we can point to that have had tremendous results. But I think it all just kind of boils down to, what is your message in recruiting? How are you sharing the opportunity that we have? And then back to the original point, how are you viewing the larger the company gets, the more kind of restrictions, if you want to call it that? Because to me, I wouldn't see it as restrictions. I would see it more as like, it's very empowering for me to know the rules, the lanes, the guidelines, how I can operate within those guidelines, and let me go get it, right? The difference is, like, Casey, when you and I were 12 years old, probably playing football in the backyard, there were probably very few rules.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't really football, was it?
I don't even know there was football. Now you turn the TV on, you watch the NFL playoffs. There's a whole lot of rules because there's a whole lot more obviously at stake, and there has to be. So from our favorite movie, this isn't Nom, there are rules. And our goal is not to be restrictive, to just be restrictive, because we don't like that either. It's restrictive to be protective. And there is so much to lose for everybody on the call that we just want to make sure that as agency owners, not only do you know what these rules are, and Matt's going to be on later and we'll continue to talk about these things, but are you helping to kind of police these things and monitor these things and really hold people accountable in your organizations? Because that's a challenge for any organization. But you're seeing companies out there that really haven't had any rules and really haven't had any, it's kind of been a free for all. And now you're starting to see why that's can be a little bit of an issue and certainly dangerous. So
we've got a head start on a lot of companies, because again, we've already kind of put in a lot of regulations, a lot of rules around our brand, around the way we market. And I just think this kind of FTC is really good for our industry, because I think for us, it allows us to lean even more into the message that Brandon is talking about, which is, this is not easy. This is worth it. If you do this, and this, but if you don't do these things, then it won't work, So I like that it's kind of continuing to encourage all of us to actually sell what this thing is, which is a very worth it opportunity for the right people. So we wanted to dig in a bunch more on the next call, on the national call a little bit. So we'll do that, and turn it over to you, Jacob. You on, buddy?
Speaking of results may vary. You got a gentleman here that Jacob, 10 years ago, you were a bartender?
Yeah, 9.
And you were making a decent income, but you were having to sacrifice a lot of things to get that, namely, time with your family, time with your wife. Bartenders generally, if you're going to be successful, are working evenings and sometimes late into the evenings. We've probably recruited several bartenders since then that haven't put in the same amount of work, the same amount of focus, and the same amount of commitment, all centered around activity. And therefore they probably, clearly, I should say, haven't gotten the same results that you've gotten. But I love talking with you about the amount of recruits that you guys are bringing in, the metrics that you guys are looking at. What are some of the things that you really feel are important to kind of track, and what can kind of feel like just clutter or minutia? And I know you're going to kind of get into some of that stuff today, but high level, number of recruits on a weekly basis that your organization is pulling in currently. And what do you consider a recruit also? Start with that.
So we're tracking completed packets, right? Like either licensed or enrolled into licensing guys. First of all, Jacob Pogue, Director Marshall Whaling, man, so grateful for you guys, and always an honor to be on here and share with everybody. But we're doing right now 50 a week, 50 completed contracts a week. So that would be either licensed or enrolled into licensing class.
Okay. And how do you drive that number? It's such a simple question. It's a hard thing to really kind of dig into if you're a new agent. So at your level, you have a lot of agency owners. What is the easiest thing for you to monitor that will have a direct impact on the end result of that number of 50 a week going up?
Well, how many people are doing it, right? Unique recruiters is obviously important, but if for an individual, the activity, the amount of interviews that they're doing per week, that's the quickest thing to monitor, right? Because I
love that. Let's stop with those two things, because I want everybody to kind of write that down. It's like, how many people in my organization do I have doing it? And out of those people doing it, how much are they doing each, right? 2 ways to increase that number. Most people don't really track unique builders or unique recruiters. Jacob, how long have you been doing that?
Oh my gosh. Laura would know better, but it feels like 2-3 years longer. Like,
what is that? You're looking at it on a weekly basis, but obviously you're tracking on a monthly basis. So to get 200 completed contracts back a month, let's call it, what are your numbers looking like for unique recruiters?
Last month we had 77.
Okay. A lot of people are just getting 1.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2, right? What are your goals? Where do you want to see that number?
So we've been talking to the team about 100. I mean, there's no reason where we're at right now that number shouldn't be 100. And we might have more people, we have new people starting all the time. So we might have more people than 77 doing it, like people who are sending out contracts. But once again, they're only counted as a unique builder if they get a completed contract back.
Okay.
Right.
That's important to note what you're classifying as a builder. So you got a lot of people maybe putting in the activity, they're getting better. Maybe they're not doing it consistently enough, but they're not getting the result yet, but they hope to. And so you have this in a spreadsheet or whatever, to where obviously all the metrics, but then broken down by each unique recruiter, how many recruits or how many contracts are they actually bringing in? Are you tracking it even to the a little more detailed than that to say how many are they sending out?
No.
Or is that more X's and O's?
What they're sending out, look, the end result is, we know we're shooting for double-digit completed contracts back, right? So we can work, and drill down with all the metrics, but of what they're sending out, but it's too much data for us to track. They need to be tracking the individuals, so we have them tracking their numbers, and so we can coach them up on their ratios, right? Like, are they getting 50% back, 60, 70%? But from a master perspective, we're not tracking that. Now we can see some of that, I think, in HQ, under the recruiting portfolio. The spreadsheet, our admins keep so many spreadsheets for me, right? I love the data. I think you need to be able to mentor metrics with data, the metrics. The spreadsheet I use the most is Pogue hierarchy, completed contracts. Every single agent on our team who gets a contract back is on this spreadsheet. So at any time, if I'm talking to any agent on my team, I can open this spreadsheet up. And I just got a new phone, so I have to sign in, so I can't open it right this second. But I can open this spreadsheet up, and it has exactly how many completed contracts they got last month, the month before, and we track it for the entire year. So I know their total for the year. I can see trends. If they call me and they say, yeah, we're in a slump, I can look back 3 months ago and say, yeah, of course you are. You had 2 contracts back 3 months ago. So it really has helped us in mentoring, is just knowing the data.
It's mentoring, and it's also accountability, as in, I'm an agent of Jacob Pogues, I'm a manager of yours, and I tell you at the beginning of the year or at any point, I want to accomplish this. My goals for the year are this. And so if I'm looking back at the numbers and I see that the activity or the results short term are not adding up to what you want to accomplish long term, it's pretty clear what kind of conversations that we need to have. So let me just answer a few questions that we're seeing in the chat. A unique recruiter. A unique recruiter is an agent in your organization that is recruiting and has gotten at least one result in that week or month period of getting a completed contract packet back to you. That person can be licensed or they can be enrolled in licensing class, but they have still completed the contracting packet. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you're not necessarily talking about, you also have recruiters that you've hired to line up interviews for yourself. That's not an individual. That's not a unique recruiter. It's a little confusing. It's a recruiter, but it's not what you're really tracking.
Not a unique builder.
You're not talking about staff. Yeah. And I think this deserves a step back, and, because if you're listening on the call and you're a tenth of Jacob's size or even smaller than that, maybe it's you and you've just now started your team, got a handful of people on your team, and you're starting to recruit, you're starting to track things like recruiting numbers. And you hear this idea of like, well, now I need to start tracking unique recruiters. How many, not just different writers do I have on my team, but how many of those writers, how many people on my team do I actually have doing that activity of recruiting with me and getting a result? It's kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do I start kind of encouraging that and tracking the number and start to increase it that way? Or does it start way before all of that, which is how you're actually bringing people in and what you're actually selling to people? And I know what the answer is, but you should definitely talk about that, dude.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, from the very beginning on the interview, I think, right. Well, our job is to meet people where they are, right? Like, I'm not going to force someone who doesn't. I just talked to an agent this week. She's wants to sell. She's happy doing that. And I'm like, hey, more power to you. Like, I love that for you. Right now, but I need to ask the question on the interview. What do you want? Like, were you excited about the sales opportunity to make a bunch of money, or to do that plus build a business and a legacy? And once they say build a business and a legacy, I instantly take the fear away from them. Most people are going to say, yes, once I figure this out. We get a bunch of people started early because I just take that fear away on the interview. Hey, that's fantastic. Most people, like yourself, like, do you want to do that fast or slow? Because I want them to say, I want to wait till I get to figure it out. Once they say that, I say, yeah, that's what most people say. Here's the benefit for you and about our business is, you can actually, if your neighbor or someone needs an opportunity, you can share this right away. Start sharing this with anybody. We'll coach them, teach them, train them, and support them, but they're your agent. They'll help you move up the promotion guideline. If you're interested in taking advantage of my time to help you build your business, let me know. We'll set up a call for later this week where we'll go over exactly what that looks like.
Yep.
right? Like, why wait? And we're good at getting that question. Yeah, I want to build, but then we just let that person sit out there and we're waiting for them to come to us with a big sign in the air that says, hey, please set up a call with me to start recruiting. You know, Like, we have to take that step.
The other thing that you do very well, and I think it's something that you hear Brandon and I kind of talk about a lot, is the importance of plugging into stuff like the big national calls or conferences, as an example. Like, if you're always wondering why we're talking about that stuff so much, it's because we know that the byproduct of those new people getting on a call and just hearing the leaderboards is all of a sudden they stop saying things like, I got to make sure this works, because now they see, well, this clearly works. And so as that trust comes up, they start to commit quicker to things that they may have heard in on the interview, which is about building. And they were a little hesitant in the beginning because or they see examples of bartenders that maybe said the same thing. And then, 12 months later, they wind up as an agency owner. Like, it's the importance of them seeing the bigger picture, because if you want a lot of builders on your team, they have to be inspired just like we all were. And we get that inspiration from being around other people who are doing that. So that's why, like, in your system, Jacob, that's part of the thing you track from a metric, like, are people plugging in, because that's the system doing a lot of the work for you and creating a lot of unique recruiters, right?
That's so true. And what I will tell you, if your conference call attendance is not great, one, you need to check the value too, right?
Yep.
Like, if we're going to have a base shop call and all those things, you got to make sure you're bringing enough value, because people, it's a volunteer army, right? So if we bring enough value on a call, then they will attend. Like, we just huddled up our entire master last week, and it was awesome. We had like 270 people in there. It's what Sarah Reinecke and Jamie Susi noticed when they first came here. They came from like a multi-level marketing company where people just didn't plug in. And they were very impressed that people weren't just that they were plugging in, but that they were happy and they were engaged. Here's another thing, recruiting wise, something that changed our business dramatically. Like, you got to talk about this stuff. Our people on our monthly call, they see how many unique builders we have. They see how many contracts we have. We celebrate, we have recruiting leaderboards on our own calls, right? But here's the key. So a lot of us on our base shop calls will do key leaders, team numbers, we'll do agency owner numbers, right? And personal sales numbers. Where we miss the boat, all those people who have one agent or two agents writing on their team, Casey, Op doesn't track it very well for us, right? But if you take the time as a leader to put a leaderboard together of your growing leaders, and now you have a leaderboard of anyone that has a downline, and you have them on there, that simple change, taking the time to do that. Now we have all of them, celebrating those early wins. Maybe you only have one unique writer, two unique writers on your team, but now they're competing with each other. That one change moved the needle for us dramatically when we introduced that a couple, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. What else? I think you answered a key question I think that I'm seeing in the chat is, I would like to be able to see this data, but I can't necessarily track it currently the way I'm trying to track it. So that, what you just said kind of answers some of that. How many managers do you have right now, Jacob?
26.
Okay. So you have 26 agency owners. How are you, anything in addition to kind of what you just said, to where you can track these numbers on a weekly basis? And obviously we can put the work in on this end to make sure that data is more easily accessible to
it
people.
Is. You guys send out a report every week. That's how we track it.
Okay. So
you send out a report every week. Laura takes that report and then transfers it. The names are attached in that report you send out. So she takes that report and puts it into an Excel spreadsheet, and if you have a new builder, you just add a line in Excel and add that person's name. It's in alphabetical order, makes it easy for people like me to find what I need to find.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can, it's just taking the time to do it. We have the data. I'm big on that. When I'm asking my staff to do something, I don't want to give them a task that's going to take them 40 hours to do. Like, we make sure, and if it is, y'all have been great at giving us the data. Like, hey, this is something that we could really use for our business. Y'all have been great. You say what's else? Look, a lot of times we get on these builder calls and We want to hear X's and O's, how to do an interview, how to get a contract back. We're some of the top recruiters in the company. The last time I trained my team on the X's and O's of recruiting, Brandon, were when we were on this builder call with Andrew Jimenez going through the interview.
How long ago was that?
Last
quarter?
Last year, mid-year.
Oh, it's summer.
Gotcha. And I just think there's so much more to it. Like, it's not look, if someone's why is big enough or what they're fighting for is big enough, they're going to figure out the how. So we spend a lot of time, one thing I am is a vulnerable leader. And I just did a call last Friday where I went through some of the struggles that I went through in building this, but then I also went through the wins and what that looks like. Right. And we just talked about that if you just don't quit, if you keep churning, you're going to we all go through the same things in building this. Our top recruit quitting, maybe our biggest leg quitting, a chargeback, a no sale, a no show, like all these things we're going to go through. I was $80,000 in debt, right? Like I shouldn't have been able to afford to do this. I couldn't, but I also couldn't run back to that other life. Right. So I had to figure it out. So we talk about these things. We talk about what they're fighting for. And you would be surprised at how many little issues that I deal with in my life, having the agency that we do. Because people understand, look, this is big, this is worth it. So today, I got porched or they didn't show, no big deal. I'm just going to keep grinding, you know? So it's just, Casey, you talk about keeping people's eyes up above, today.
Yeah.
So
good. So good. Casey, we've talked about that. God, we've talked about that for years. And Jacob, you do such a great job of making sure that your players are engaged, and you can't expect what you don't have the ability to inspect, right? So what does engagement look like to you? How are you holding people accountable to that engagement? Obviously conferences, that's why conferences are so huge, but it also goes back to as simple as, what am I selling today? What am I talking about today? When I'm having a conference call with my leaders, when I'm having a one-on-one call with a new agent, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? Like, if you want your people's vision to stay up here so that all these little things like Jacob's talking about don't derail you, the person that no shows you, the policy that charges back, the agent that quits, how are you keeping your people's vision, Jacob, so high? Does it all come back to, what are you talking about? What are you sharing with your vision?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So it's a mixture, right? Like the call that I did, and I did it for a few hierarchies recently, I just kind of stumbled on it. Marlon was interviewing me and it just came out and the feedback was good. And it was that struggle and then the worth it. Right. And so that's good for people to hear sometimes, because sometimes they can see some of the top people in the company and assume that it's easy, or assume that they're better than them, or that they're different. And it's so not true. Like I tell people all the time, I'm a bartender from Woodbridge, Virginia, who fell across an amazing opportunity and was just maybe dumb enough not to quit when it was hard, So there's some of that, but then there's also excitement and positivity and talking about the future and what y'all are building and transforming an industry. Look, like, I stay excited, man. I stay fired up about this opportunity. I've been here 9 years and I'm more excited today getting out of bed to go to work, to impact another person. The work's different. Look, I earn the right not to have to dial on Friday and Saturday, and I don't apologize for that. Like, I love that. Yep. But I love what I get to do and jump on these calls and inspire people. And I stay excited. And because I stay excited, Casey, people around me get excited. I got 26 agency owners that are fired up, So focusing on the future is how you grow today. And so many people want to get wrapped up in, well, I need to know exactly what to say on an interview. Figure it out. Just figure it out. I did. We all did.
It's just a conversation. It's just a conversation. Don't make it overly difficult. I love this so much. I know we're out of time. We're going to have to do this again soon.
Yeah, so good.
Because I was having a funny conversation with Spivey yesterday, and he's constantly going through this process in his mind of, what do I need to jump in to be involved in, or what can be taken care of from the many layers of management in the hierarchy. And so I said, Spivey, are you going to call agent A that is extremely positive and they're wanting to come up with a solution and they're going to do this? You're going to call back agent B that always seems to kind of have a little Eeyore to them, whatever, don't have a solution, just kind of a problem spotter? You're going to call agent C, who seems to be kind of disengaged, blah, blah, blah. Which one of those people you call? And you know what his answer was? Jacob Pogue. I'm calling back Jacob Pogue. That's what you just said is extremely important, because if you want your word to carry impact and influence, then you need to come to the table with energy and excitement. You need your teammates to leave a call with you feeling better than when they got on the phone with you. And if I'm constantly working on helping them to become positive and bigger picture things and really exciting stuff and all the things that you just said that you're talking to your people about, then they're going to answer your calls. They're going to call you back. They're going to look forward to the conversations they're having. And their vision is always going to be higher up here and less about the few things that aren't going the way that they need to be going. So you can put all the processes, Jacob, all the data, all the spreadsheets, all the things in place that you want. But if you don't come to the table with the right type of positive attitude and mental energy and the desire to make a positive impact every step of the way, then it may not work.
Can I just tell you, everyone on the call, you just said something that is one of the most important things. Like, it's the thing. You do this and your business will grow. One thing to give you today, your business will grow. Brandon said, when you're talking to your people, your job is to, when they get off the phone, they feel better about themselves and where they're going than when they got off. Marshall Whalen was that for me.
Yep.
And I wasn't that when I came here. I had to grow into that person. And I just mimicked what I saw in y'all and him.
Yep.
Everyone can change into that and grow into that, right? Like, that's it. That's the key. People feel better, whether I'm giving them great news, whether I'm giving them coaching, whether we're just celebrating, they feel better when they get off the phone.
And
that's so big, because what the tendency is to do is to play the lowest level of leadership, which is positional leadership, which is, I have a title now of a key leader or an agency owner. And so now I got to get in and manage people. And you see people kind of starting to micromanage. Well, when I get on, and I'm not saying that you don't instruct people and you don't tell them what they need to be doing. There are a lot of tools to do that, by the way, that doesn't necessarily have to come from you. Like, what is it that I can say as a leader that can't be said on Quality University, or that can't be said by someone else on a conference call? Like, what can I do that only I can do, that I can't delegate anywhere else? And that's to inspire. Like, and what the problem is if I start to get on the phone with you, Jacob, or you start to get on your phone with your people and start to spend that time micromanaging, is instantly what you're telling me is, I can't do this because you have to get into my business and start telling me how to do all the details. And now you create me always feeling like I need you to create any movement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, man, inspiration. It's like, how are you pouring into someone? How are you making them feel special? How are you making them feel like they got this? That's your job.
Yeah.
Love that, man.
Because what Quality won't do is say, hey, Casey, man, I've never seen anyone better than teaching the X's and O's in this business on a whiteboard than you. What we need for you is just more people. Dude, you got to get profitable. You got to figure out how to get profitable so you can go find some more people and grow this team. This team needs you in that role. And I'd love to see you in that role. Those are the kind of conversations we have with people. You call them up, you find something that they're doing, and you celebrate them for that as you're stretching them for more.
Love it. So good.
Great, man. Jacob, thank you.
These builders calls are too short.
I know, man. Golly. We need to make them a series. But I do think that we can figure out how to get more of that, Jacob, from you. I may have to fire up the old podcast room soon.
Appreciate you guys, man.
Jacob.
But I love it.
Up, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've got a video. Let's play a video.
Let's bail out.
Let's hit the old.
This program contains dramatic reenactments and material that may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised.
I mean, it started out just like any other Saturday, I remember it was a beautiful day because I really wanted to be out barbecuing and instead of dialing. But I grabbed my coffee, I printed off my leads, and I got all settled in and started making my calls. And that's when it happened.
We had been through the whole presentation before everything fell apart. I mean, I knew they could afford it. I knew they needed the coverage. He was the only one earning anything, and they had 2 young kids at home. I thought for sure I was going to walk out of there with an application. I never believed that the situation would take a turn for the worse. But it did.
Something just wasn't right. I knew we had the appointment set for 6:30. I specifically remember asking them to write the time down on a piece of paper. And there I was, alone. So alone. And that's when I got really, really scared.
You hear the stories on the conference calls. You hear the struggles people go through, and you tell yourself, it'll never happen to me. Bad things aren't supposed to happen to good people, right? Honestly, I don't know what else I could have done to avoid what happened next.
My heart started beating, my mouth went dry, and I couldn't get the words out. And just as I was about to, dial tone.
That's when they said their brother was an insurance agent, and they needed to run it by him first.
Oh my goodness. Woo! There's some acting in that, Brandon.
Yes.
Were those real tears?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sure they were.
Pinching myself really hard.
Oh, that is definitely
I love it.
one of the funniest
There's so
videos.
many good parts. Casey throwing up in the bush. I love Roddy running through the woods, Cicely wiping the tear away with the lead.
With an old wet lead.
Yeah, it's just good stuff.
Any video that invokes the no is a good video.
I know we had to search long and hard for that footage of the birds going across, because we just, I don't know, we had this vision, like we really wanted to see birds and a gun blast to really nail down the dramatic piece there. So, it's not every day that we get to start a conference call with I Survived. And it's also not every day that we get the pleasure of having Mr. Matt Goforth on. Is this something that we want to, should I hit the leaderboards first, or should we go ahead and let Matt talk
Let
now?
Matt talk.
Casey?
Let's talk to Matt.
Yeah, I guess we could do that before leaderboards if you want.
Yeah, that way we can positive it up.
Yeah, let's do
anytime you get the attorneys on, we don't want to scare anybody, but it's a very interesting time in our space. And we thought it'd be very prudent to be as proactive as we can about some of the things that are going on around the space. As some people have heard, many people know, probably 60 days ago, the FTC sent out a notification to, what was it, about 3,000 companies?
Yep.
Matt?
Yep.
Amazon was on that company, probably eBay, a lot of companies that were kind of hiring 1099 employees, 1099 contractors. And we were on that list along with several other people in the space. That was not it was basically a broad letter that went out saying, hey, we're watching these things. We're monitoring anybody that's kind of participating in predatory behavior. And we want to let you know what some guidelines are that you need to be following and make sure that you're following to stay in compliance. So immediately, Matt Goforth, you get together with Joe Dindy in marketing. We make sure that we are in compliance. Our messaging around what it takes to be successful as a Symmetry or Quility agent hasn't changed from the way that Casey and I have been talking about it for 12 years. This is not a get rich quick thing. This is certainly not easy. It's worth it. And for those that put in the work, you can experience amazing things. But as we always like to say, results may vary and results will vary. I think there are some other people that may have gotten a little hot water because they weren't being necessarily as clear as that. And it's not really our space. It's never been a goal of ours to try to drag down a competitor, to try to, point to anybody that's not doing things a certain way. At Quility, we certainly want to focus on who we are, what we do, where we're going, how we're getting better. And we don't like to even necessarily focus on people that we don't even necessarily consider our competition, because we're going in a completely different direction than that. So with all that being said, Matt, I think it was important that we just wanted to have you on, unless there's anything you wanted to add, Casey.
I would just say, before I turn it over to Matt, we kind of acknowledged this on the last call too, especially with all the leaders, that, I'm proud of our company in a lot of ways, because, we have made an effort over the last couple of years, especially when we, introduced Quility to all of you guys and let everyone, we unrolled the ears and the O's, gave away 20% of the future growth of the company. We let everyone know that with that opportunity is going to come some responsibility, and we can't just be the wild, wild west anymore, especially when it comes to marketing and branding, especially when it comes to events and anything that's like, if we're going to be a public facing company, a lot of smaller IMOs, they're not really focused on being public facing or client facing. It's just more kind of agent facing. And so since we've kind of planted that flag in the ground saying we want to try to drive towards being a household brand, it's going to come with some responsibilities. And I'm proud that we kind of took that proactive approach. We also acknowledge and understand how that feels to a lot of you guys, especially as leaders, when there may have been, freedoms that we all used to have before, where I didn't have to run that up the flagpole before. I didn't have to check with marketing before I could just make a decision to do this. And I didn't have all this perceived, kind of these guardrails or whatever you want to call them. So I think this letter and some of what Matt is going to share is going to hopefully provide you guys with even more kind of like, okay, I get why these guys were saying we need to have some responsibilities and we need to have some protections for ourselves, that we can't just be the wild, wild west, because that's incredibly hard to control, especially in a world where, the Federal Trade Commission and other entities are really trying to look out for the public's safety, especially when it comes to, they're seeing the same thing we're all seeing, which is this massive shift towards gig economy and people wanting to maybe work from home now more, or, be 1099. And they're saying, look, there are a lot of companies that fit this category of 1099 workers, and we need to make sure that they're not being deceptive to try to attract people, to their company. So, Matt, take it from there, but just wanted to mention that to you guys. We acknowledge that things have been a little bit more strict for the last couple of years, but there's reasons for that. And we're starting to see that now.
Yeah, no, that's all exactly right. I was going to start out with just kind of explaining who the Federal Trade Commission, or what the Federal Trade Commission is, but it's it's really just a federal agency whose only job is consumer protection. They do not want the general public to be deceived by businesses, and they have nationwide enforcement authority and broad authority. And right now, they have gotten very focused on and aggressive in pursuing businesses that are in, like Casey and Brandon said, that are hiring 1099 people that aren't W-2 employees, and that are making any kind of what they view as false, misleading, or deceptive claims about the amount of income that you can make in this gig or this job or whatever you want to call it. And they've identified what we see as like two very particular areas that we're going to address as a company, and also get information to all of the agents about how they can address it, and how we need all the agents as well as the company kind of addressing this the same way. And you'll get additional communications from us on this, but we just wanted to kind of explain why. And so that's the purpose of me being on here right now, is to explain why you're going to get this additional information about how we can all comply with this. And we need to be doing it. Even if the Federal Trade Commission wasn't telling us this, we as a business and as a company, we need to make sure we're not deceiving people.
Yep. Just
to be good people. And the FTC is out there making sure we're doing that, but we need to do it anyway. But the first main area and big area is just references to COVID or the pandemic in general. That COVID or the pandemic somehow makes this a business opportunity, whether it's because of COVID or in spite of COVID, you have this business opportunity. So overall, we don't want our recruiting materials to reference COVID or the pandemic. And then that's the number one kind of broad category. And the second one is what I put in a category called testimonials, talking about how much money I made or somebody else made doing this job. That, something like, last year I was making $40,000 a year and now I'm making $40,000 a month. Even if that's true, the Federal Trade Commission has now said that they view that as deceptive. Unless it comes with like what Brandon was saying, or I can't remember if it was Brandon or Casey, but unless it comes with the caveat of, well, not everybody can make this much money, but I did, and this is how. And everybody won't experience these. Results will vary, I think is what Brandon or Casey said. But like, so that kind of, disclaimer kind of information, like these were my results, but the results, everybody else won't see these same results. So we're not saying you can't put testimonials, and we don't need people putting testimonials out. It just has to come with additional information. A few other things, saying anything like, hey, anybody can do this, it's easy, no experience necessary, that kind of thing. We want to stay away from those things that the FTC views as deceptive. We also, I think this has kind of been a company policy since forever, but we don't want to mention our competitors. And that's kind of the broad points that I want to hit as far as the reason for this. But like I said, we need to, as a company, and all of our agents need to make sure on our own that we're not being deceptive. And the Federal Trade Commission wants us to do it. So we will get you more information on kind of guidelines on how we're going to comply as a company, and we want all of our agents to do the same.
Yep. And I don't know if you can clarify, maybe better coming from you, our company did not receive a cease and desist.
That's right. We did not.
We do not want
no, we do not want to receive one. And we just want to make sure that we and all of our agents are conducting themselves in a way that we won't get one.
Yep.
Because it would do nothing but harm the company.
Yep. And I know there's probably, again, kind of going back, Matt, to like what our recruiting stance is and really always has been, which is, I think it's easy, especially as people are coming up and recruiting and they haven't got it yet. If they're not being instructed on the right way, it could be easy or tempting for them to want to publish their testimonials or in an effort to kind of make things sound easy. But once you start to really understand what attracts the right kind of people to your business, You actually want to almost pivot the opposite way. I almost want to lead with, this is a challenge.
Right.
If you want to know what the average person does here, the average person quits, but we're not looking for average, but if you do this, this, and this, these are some examples of the people that have won. It's like, I would rather reverse the message. It's not like, here's the testimonial, here's the result, and then here's some fine print. Let's lead with the fine print. Let's lead that this is tough, and so I think if we can do anything with this, it's all of us can kind of even like hone in on what really is the best way to attract people in the first place, which is a challenge. People don't want easy. Look, if everyone could do this, then there'd be no money in it. The insurance companies wouldn't be able to pay us like they pay us. I need for 90% of people to really, it's such a low barrier to entry. I need for most people to kind of come in and come out and quit. That's just the way it works. Like, it's a tough business. So
right. Yeah. We don't want to be selling this as a quick and easy get rich scheme.
Nope,
because it's not. Yeah. And so we should never frame it as if it is.
Yep. That's right.
So let me hit a few questions for you, Casey. See how you would handle this based on
I have to
a lot of
turn
this.
that over to Matt, though.
Luckily, we have our attorney standing by, so you have to consult your attorney. A couple of questions I'm seeing are just kind of relative to how do I talk about the average income? Casey, somebody says to you, well, what does the average person make? How does the average person do?
I love that question. And you and I always used to say the same thing on interviews. Somebody wants to know what the average person did. We would say the average person quits. To be quite frank with you, more people quit than actually make it.
Why is that?
Because a couple of reasons. There's a low barrier to entry. So it takes you 40 hours to get your insurance license, a couple $100. That's the good news. The bad news is it takes you 40 hours and a couple $100 to get an insurance license.
Yeah.
Easy in, easy out. So people just come in, and because they didn't have a lot of skin in the game investing in this opportunity, the first moment that they hit a little bit of adversity, the first moment they get a no-show or they call those leads and realize, Matt, not everyone is actually going to just invite me over and give me a check for their first month's premium. They go, this wasn't the easy I was looking for. People are just looking for easy. And so I would say low barrier to entry. And I would also say that in itself, like Ayers, we were in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and Ayers Newsom said something I thought was just like such a good thought around this very subject, which is we bring people in sometimes with the wrong expectations. In our interview or whatever, we may be tempted to paint the picture a little bit too much that this is going to be easy. And if you're in that category where you do that, the problem with that is it's not. And so all you're doing is setting them up for high expectations, and that this is finally something that is going to be easy. And then the first moment when they realize it's not going to be easy, it's like, well, you didn't tell me that. I'd rather lead in with that stuff. I'd rather lead in with setting their expectations that this is going to be a lot of work. This is going to be tough. Here's some examples of people that kill it. Not all of them had, college degrees either. Like, give those examples. But I think setting the right expectations for people, you might think it's going to send them off the other way, but what you don't realize is you end up attracting the right people and sending off the wrong people.
Yeah.
Yes, you're sending off the people that aren't going to try hard and work hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you're sending off the people that realize that it's BS.
Yeah,
there's nothing out there where everybody can come in there that's like this easy get rich quick thing. It's like, that's just not, we're not a multi-level marketing company. We use multiple levels of commission, but it's like, that's never been our message. And if that is anything to do with your messaging, like, you're blowing it from the get-go. There's probably a lot more questions that we can be sure to answer. Spivey can be sure to answer as we keep going. Matt, I know you got a lot of stuff to get back to, man. I really appreciate you being on. This is stuff that we're going to continue to work on. We'll continue to give you guys guidelines. We'll continue to do everything that we need to do to help protect each other. But we are counting on all of you to, like Matt said, do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because somebody's watching, but because we want you guys to be good people out there. We don't want to be deceptive. And then I think let's all hold each other accountable. If you see something posted on social, if it's your downline or not, let's just, handle it the right way, and let's just try to make sure that we're doing things the right way. So
yeah, that's a good point. We've got to monitor it too. We can't just say it right now and then expect everybody to be doing it right. And people may make mistakes, and if we notice that or see that or somebody else does, we need to be able to point it out.
Yeah,
It's good.
Yep.
Matt, last thing I'll say is I've known you for 25 years, and it's the first time I've seen you with a beard. So
First time I've had one.
good.
It's just coming. It started out just being lazy, and then it kind of grew on me.
Is this something I was going to ask?
One.
It's like I had a feeling it had to do with two things. Number one, you've been spending a lot more time in Asheville.
That's what my wife thinks the reason
is.
Yeah.
And number two, I've also noticed she's spending a lot of time at this new hunting camp. So I don't know. Those two things.
I think that's all unrelated.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
You, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
All right. Let's hit some leaderboards, man. I know we kind of running along today. I want everybody to know the amazing Carlton Lear with Hannah Jacobs, Timothy Reismus, and Gina Sforza are